and probably get started. How does this thing go?
Yeah, they just call
All right. How's sound doing? Fantastic. So, today we'll be talking about this tool that I've been working on for a little while. More importantly, I'm going to be talking about a concept. And that concept is alternative means of basically parsing data, interpreting data, understanding it, especially in regards to networking. You may be familiar with standard network sniffers such as Wireshark and tcpdump. We'll do a quick intro of those, and then introduce my alternative. First, for some context, my name is Killian. I have a Twitter which has 1 tweet. I'm slowly trying to become more social on it, but the whole paranoia thing, it's real. This project and these slides will be up on GitHub after I get over the, again, paranoia and or self-confidence issues that come with publishing your own project, your own code online. Because somebody's going to commit something or say, hey, this doesn't work. And we say, I know. Because it's true territory. I'm a penetration tester for Fire Systems. I've been in there for going on 3 years now. So I still feel fairly newish. It's one of those things where I keep learning more about what I don't know. And I don't really know if that'll ever. It's kind of one of the things that I really like about this industry. Prior to that, I did just about you name it in IT. I did tech support, I did sysadmin, I did software support. That last bit, if you recognize it, the fixed hour hit blank. Yeah, and there, done that, took point. Moved to this offensive security role and have not missed being on call 1 bit. The main reason that I think that any of that is pertinent to today's talk is I've been in a number of situations where I had to analyze network traffic. Maybe it's fixing something, maybe it's making sure that my routing is functional, maybe it's analyzing protocols so that way I can attack it now. I've had a fair number of reasons to do this. Quick agenda, the what and why we'll go into. Current solutions, as I mentioned, we'll go over tcpdump and Wireshark. Just a quick intro. I'm not going to assume anybody here has knowledge with these tools, so those who do, please bear with us as I pick this up. Mainly just because if I'm talking about an alternative to something, if you don't know what Coke is, why do you care about Dr. Pepper? That sort of thing. Then go launch into PcketRquet. Depending on how time's doing, probably not do the code overview. Like give a little bit of time for discussion, get the person coming to get set up, and actually lunches afterwards, and everyone's going to be running off anyway. So, what is this talk? It's kind of a tool debut. It's the first project that I'm sharing with people. It's really a launch. I'm going to be actually publishing it after this talk, so I guess it is online when we publishing it. And I'd say only assuming a basic level of networking knowledge, just because if you don't know what packets are, again, this isn't going to make much sense. So I like to try to bring everybody up to a base level to understand why it matters. This is going to be a bouncing presentation. What I mean by that, I've got some VMs, I'm moving to those, moving between slides. I think I've solved the problem that I had by duplicating it instead of trying to use PowerPoint's projection, because that didn't end well. So, why am I bothered? Because it seems like this. recognize it for those of you who don't. This is seen from Hackers, movie Hackers, Hacking the Gibson, and it kind of ruined me, quite honestly. Like this, The Matrix, books like Neuromancer, all of these books and TV shows like Tech War, based off of a series on Shatner, it's B01 Shatner. They envisioned this very interactive, very, quite honestly, inefficient and wasteful interface to the internet, to networking, to computers, to hacking. And it looked fun. It was great. So don't get me wrong. I love my job. It is the most fun I've ever had that included having a hacker in conversation with the police. But it still feels like I'm playing a text-based video game. You know, walk to rock, pick up rock, look at rock, you've been eaten by a brew. And we need, and I'm still waiting for that next step. Like, when do the graphics start upgrading? Are we going to do the VR? I'm assuming somebody's going to be putting out, you know, that Hacking the Gibson scene in VR, put it up on the Oculus or Live, and that is going to be a blast. But there isn't really much out there that does that. And one of the reasons is, of course, it's inefficient. We get all these advances in tech to drive productivity, which kind of sucks because where's the fun? I mean, we're producing so much more. I feel like we should be able to take some time and have some fun with it as well. Basically, the why behind this is I thought it was cool. Now, that doesn't work to get very far whenever you're submitting CPs, because everybody's got cool ideas. So I'll go into some of the rationale behind other benefits to it, potentially. But really, I had a cool idea, or what I thought was a cool idea, and I wanted to share it. People I've talked to deserve anything they asked about it. So, the formal version, the reason you propose, alternative means of network analysis. You have your standards, you have Wireshark, tcpdump, maybe you're writing your own in Python and Scapy. These kind of just text-based visual Wireshark Studio, but still very visually demanding and oriented interfaces. We already have so many visual interfaces. I mean, during your day, you probably have Outlook open, you may have OneNote open, you probably have Reddit or Facebook in a tag, you've got your Twitter feed. You then have, of course, all the work you're doing, whether it's in Excel or Snort, Stack Overflow. Another window gets in the way. Another window means that you have to either get another monitor, which is always a good thing, but it still means that you have to start time slicing your, like, what you're looking at. And then it becomes really easy to miss that essential packet that could be giving away potentially an attack. So my answer to that was trying to experience network traffic in a new way by putting in a sound element. It's really simplistic right now. It's basically just looking at source and destination ports and then playing a particular static map sound to it. Now, it may be a weird thing to say, but almost everything has a kind of music to it. Even a standard office environment, you get that buzz of conversation, the phone calls, the potential white noise generation, the air conditioner. It creates a sound. We don't really have that from the network. Unless, of course, your router's about to die, in which case that fan just starts working. I gotta say, I actually missed dial-up modem, that noise. It was very satisfying. It was terrible if you were trying to get online when you weren't supposed to, because I'll immediately take it away. But still, it was a sound corresponding to the network. I wanted to try to do something about that. I wanted to expand the appeal of potential network analysis. So right now, a lot of people, if they were to look at tcpdump or Wireshark, they'd be kind of overwhelmed. It would be, what's the point of this? I'm not really sure I want to just read a bunch of numbers and text. This field doesn't look like it's for me. When the security industry is in the straits that it appears to be in regards to the employment, the opportunities, if we could start bringing people in potentially from other realms, such as the humanities, we might be able to start filling that gap. They have a lot to offer. I used to be an English teacher in another life. I came from the humanities over to this because I don't have to grade as a pen tester. It's wonderful. We don't go into the physical things. But it is teaching. And lastly, the potential for accessibility features. There are the magnifiers. There are the on-screen narration. I haven't really come across anything like that to help with security parameters. If someone who has poor vision wants to do something with security and they can't operate a computer normally, they are at a disadvantage. There's the potential that this could help close that gap and give somebody an opportunity to use it with that feature. So we've got the standard solutions, which I'm going to go over these briefly and then hop into the VM and do some quick demos with a packet capture just to review it in each. Now, I'm going to be stretching a little bit to find the drawbacks to these tools. It's going to be a little bit like as seen on TV. You know, why can't I hold my popcorn when I sit down in my chair? Because I need an armrest. So, that being said, it's mostly for the sense of I have to propose an alternative if I have plenty of flaws. They're great tools, by the way. So it's tcpdump and Wireshark. These are kind of interfaces, dumping a packet capture, and looking at one in both. And all right. So I've got this packet capture. I'm going to do a reading of it. Catch that? Catch that? Super handy. Super handy. When your text just scrolls by your screen, you have no idea what the first bit was. And if this was a live capture, you would have no way to go back through and read what these packets were actually doing. And you can scroll through it, it's hard to tell what's going on. It's text, it's console, not very useful. Now, that being said, you of course have abilities to expand what you're seeing, and then you get all sorts of stuff like by the way, if you ever wonder if Nmap gives you away, it does. So this expands it out, and you have, in case you don't know, this is a hex step of it, and this is the ASCII equivalent. So if you're looking at HTTP, you can actually see the clear text profile of it, which is exactly why HTTPS became a thing. If you're logging into Facebook, into your router, into Telnet, a packet capture of that transaction reveals your credentials. You can just see them, map them, log in yourself. So that's tcpdump. tcpdump is great for taking packet capture and then moving it to otherwise. Interacting with it, I'm kind of iffy on. You can't read and write at the same time without doing some tricks with other Linux tools like T. But it's a limitation. If you're writing a PCAT file, you can review it as well. Always kind of found it. With that in mind, let us move over to Wireshark. Let's ignore that because yes, it's handy. Wireshark's handy. I actually have some difficulties finding too many flaws other than it's got a whole lot of options. A ton of it. It solves the issue that tcpdump has in that you can read and write. As in, you have Wireshark listening, and you can see the packets coming in. If you want to save them, then you can write it out to a PCAT file, or PCAT. Or you can just discard it. You have options. You can also set capture filters, so that way you only get a certain set of data, or you can pull in everything and then filter it down. You want only HTTP? You just type HTTP. If you want particular ports. You say that, but what about zone transfers? Above a certain size. You have, if it's there, the ability to follow streams. And this is the sort of thing where if you were if you were sniffing on the wire and you saw credentials, this puts them right there. You're able to just steal them, use them, it's great. However, this takes up the whole window. And if you're trying to do something else, anything else, you're not going to be able to see everything you need. And if you reduce the window size, you just start losing. You can't really see much use of this. So you've got the situation where tcpdump can't really read from the wire and write from the wire, so you can't necessarily see what's going on, or you can't say what's going on. Wireshark, it's taking up the full screen effectively, even though it isn't really using it. And hopefully that's a decent enough introduction to the interfaces. I advise you definitely look these up. They are fantastic tools to get to using particular, if you're not familiar with networking, this is great because of the way that it breaks down the different layers, how the layers work together, working apart the protocols. May think it's dry stuff, but it's actually really fascinating. And hopefully, my ideas will help spur that. Great. So, my alternative, name of it, is PcketRquet. As you can see, it's designed to play music. Say that right now it's still trying to get there. Corresponding in particular, network traffic. The name comes from the idea that it is taking the digital form of a packet and bouncing it into an audible signal that hits your ear. Therefore, a racket for packets. And of course, you got to throw in the hats because it's a networking computer tool. I felt like I would lose my nerd card if I didn't. Also, it sounds like a racket right now. It really is. So the theory behind the development of this tool was to provide insight into how the networks function. Either create a baseline of traffic, so that way you have an idea of what's going on, and you can constantly hear the same tunes, and therefore if something comes around that's an aberration, you know the difference. Alternatively, I'm thinking about putting in filters, so that way you don't even need to have necessarily a baseline. You just say, I only want to listen for Tor traffic or traffic on port 4444, default interpreter port. But right now, it's kind of based on working on that baseline idea. Of course, if you're taking a baseline while something's going on, it'll consider that normal, and it doesn't work anyway. That every tool is that. With that theory in mind, regardless of whether or not you're blue team, red team, analyst, or penetration tester, you can keep an eye on an ear on the network without having to take up another screen. As a tester, I find this valuable because if I'm expecting responses from a service I'm testing, I'm expecting to hear those responses or see them if I'm using Wireshark. If all of a sudden I stop hearing or seeing those, I potentially crash that service. Because that happens. And that's how you get put on night shift, because you bounce the router that the entire client's network is going out of. However, if you're able to catch that earlier, you know exactly when that stops. You can get on a call, you can call the client and say, hey, this has stopped responding. Have you blacklisted me? Or is it down? Do we need to bounce it and bring it back up? So it allows for a faster discovery of that. As a blue teamer, whether or not you're an IT support, if you're doing network maintenance, if you're actually working on a SOC trying to find attacks, you can start listening for aberrations. If all of a sudden you get a ping sweep coming through, you may want to look into that. Why is somebody trying to enumerate the hosts on your network by ICP? That's not usually normal. Or maybe all of a sudden you're getting just a crazy amount of packets going through, and it just creates a ruckus. Is anything going on, or did someone just plug a switch into itself? This helps you figure that out again and start sorting out before you bring down the entire network because it overloads all of your devices. Again, the idea of accessibility. The idea that someone who has visual impairments could train themselves to know which notes corresponded to which traffic sounds. And at the point that something that wasn't supposed to be there was there, they can bring it up with someone else. They can use potential other tools and basically be empowered to help fill some of the spots that we don't have right now, that are left vacant. The example, of course, if you are listening and you are hearing only standard SMB traffic, HTTP, HTTPS, maybe some ARC requests, some DNS requests going back and forth, and all of a sudden you hear a port scan, it will stand out. The ideas of it vary a little bit right now, but it should be distinct from the standard traffic. So, we're going to have to prove this. Otherwise, just a bunch of talk, it's not going to be functional. Maybe I don't even have functional script. I have two functional scripts. One is called BSides, because I hate sending a Python script to somebody and them getting import error, module blah not found, or no such module, because dependency hell. They have to download the 5 dependencies that you used in your script. That sucks. So I created BSides, which is an all-in-one script. It's kind of basic. It doesn't have the PCAP reading feature, but I can email that to someone. And if they have a Linux VM or a Linux machine, they run it, it will create the sound files for them, and it will just play, which is pretty neat. However, because it doesn't have the external libraries which make things like packet carving really easy, I haven't gotten quite as advanced as the other one. The other one, which I'm turning to actual PcketRquet, uses Scapy, for example, which is a really, really powerful Python library that makes packet carving, PCAP reading, just a dream. If you had dreams like that. Because if someone's willing to download Scapy or knows how to install requirements, I'm also using different sets of sounds for PcketRquet proper. Because I'm going to show both, and one starts getting on the nerves a little bit as you hear the same packets, which is one of the reasons why I think filters would be a good idea. But if someone's willing to download other libraries, maybe they're willing to download sound libraries. And so that way, here are all the tunes that are being associated with the network packets and the network ports. Just download them, download all the requirements, you have the full featured version. However, you just want to try it out, the BSides, you get it, you run it. I say standard dependencies, but given that Linux is Linux, who knows which system or version I'm not going to end up not working on. Bear with me on that. So, time to prove it. I'm going to take, I'll leave that up because I want to do a quick example of it. Take these first. Sorry, BSides doesn't have the PCAP reading feature. So we'll do some of the lists. I have to remember my own options. Dash P so we can see the packets, and dash P for the PCAP. And just to make sure. If you'll notice with that tone change, you've got IP requests iterating through the last function. And, as you can tell, if that hits, all of a sudden you can start saying, hey, maybe I should look at the network. What's going on there? Because it does somewhat stand out. Versus with tcpdump, if you were to look closely and you didn't have somebody being cheap and scrolling really fast, I'm just going to hold this for now because I'm going to need to put it back down. I'm going to scroll. That's the other drawback with tcpdump. If your scroll buffer isn't long enough, you lose it. Here we have a bit that I scrolled past rather quickly, deliberately, which is cheap, but like I said, I have to introduce the drawbacks. You see that it did indeed show the ICMP with the ping scan. In Wireshark, if you wanted to look for something and you thought that it was there, you could just type ICMP, filter through, and you see the exact same sort of stuff. However, you have to be looking. In a flood of packets on a normal network, that's just going to whiz by, and you're never going to realize that it's there. With the sound, it starts bringing it in and actually giving you those alerts. So, we're going to have some fun and start playing with it. What we have going on here is, as you can see, it's a telnet session. Someone could be logging in, running commands. If you heard this, you'd be like, why is anybody using telnet on our network? Wait, we've got that one device. I'm the IT manager. I never logged into a Cisco device via telnet. I use SSH. Has someone found out that telnet's enabled on? So one bug that I introduced this week is Control C doesn't actually kill it. I have to background it and kill it. So imagine that this is a really long Control C. A quick DNS one. And so that one, it's admittedly a little bit dubstepy right now, but I am planning on increasing the number of services that it covers and the amount of tunes that I use. But this is giving kind of a basic idea in regards to the DNS queries. Again, with the amount of bandwidth that a normal corporate network would have, you probably don't care about standard DNS queries unless you just want to mix up the sound. However, if you want to look up DNS tunneling stuff, maybe you want to have a flag out for that. I'm considering options for like using Alexa top 100 list. If it's a domain that's not within there, then play the DNS lookup sound, at which point you may want to say, hey, what's this DNS query being made? What domain is it being made to? Should I care about that? If you had your normal traffic and you started hearing this, you might want to look out. Because that's another way to iterate hosts around you instead of just doing like ICMP. If you're doing an ARP scan like this, I also don't remember how long that one is, so we're just going to go ahead and turn that one off. And that's, we'll get into that later. The FTP.
the ability to make PCAPs that are actually records. I mean, you could take PCAPs, play them through this instrument, and start having you could have your favorite PCAP file that has a particular tune. Now, that's cool, that's all very well and grand, but what can we actually do with this besides just reading PCAP files? And this is also going to give you an eye into what the basic one sounds like. This one's going to work. If you started hearing that instead of the standard HTTP 445, again, you might be inclined to look at the network. Also, that's a lot of packets, so. So, we're doing fantastic on time. I kind of want to replace those noises with chiptunes, because that actually just kind of writes out the sine waves, made it really easy to play out, made it really easy to have the sounds correspond. Quite honestly, it gets really annoying if you listen to it too long. However, the other opportunity that this particular tool presents is, alright, you can have PCAP files that are your favorite records. You can also craft your own sounds. Do a quick test of those. And quite honestly, some of these sound better in one version versus the other, in my opinion. So that's just using a batch for loop. This is a command that I run on a relatively regular basis whenever I'm doing penetration tests. If I compromise one host and I want to see what's alive around it, I can just run this. I don't have to worry about it port forwarding, any tunneling, nmap scans through it. I can do that afterwards, but this is a really good way to just do a quick check in the network and find a host. Now for the beauty that is PowerShell. When I say beauty, I actually can't stand the way it looks, but it is an incredibly robust language. that's not what I mean by getting into a bit. I think that was a comment. And that is just that's a PowerShell port scan. Again, it's another one of those things where if you've compromised a host and you want to see what is open on another host that you can't necessarily connect to directly, you can pivot from that one and just do quick little TCP connections to those hosts in that particular port, and it runs it. So that was a port scan. However, the other option is if you were to craft which ports you wanted to connect to, and remembering that each port corresponds to a different tune, you can use this little list, which is an array of ports. And then for each port, it'll make that connection. So therefore, each sound will be made in turn. Now, I mixed this up a little bit earlier. I have not actually heard what this is going to sound like. However, it should be relatively brief. That's not enough of that. But as you can see, you can use languages like this. Anything that you can use to connect to a port, you can basically use to make the tunes. So, known issues / plans. It's written in Python 2.7, which is definitely pretty much a thing of the past. I started it in Python 2.7 because it was what I was doing whenever I was learning it, and it seemed easier at the time. I really need to get with it and just rewrite it. I have some concerns about the scaling compatibility. I want to implement a PCAP functionality in BSides. I think it's possible. I just need to get a lot better with my carving out networking stuff. I want to expand the protocol coverage. Right now, I'm using the in-map service ranking. If you are familiar with that, or if you're not, there's a --top port --ports flag that you can use, and it has a ranking. They did a statistical ranking of services and the commonality of them, basically on the internet. I don't really remember where they did it. It's also kind of old, I believe. But it provided me with the ability to sort out, these are most likely the most common things that you will hear. I'm kind of working my way down that list. And I also am using the Etsy services page, which has the IANA or ICANN chart of common ports and services associated with them. Working on increasing the tune catalog. Some of those were assigned me, but I want to keep messing with them. try to get better tunes, better ones associated. One of the delightful things is it's just a mass of if-else statements. If it's this chord, play this wave file. So it's the sort of thing where it's really customizable. Any sound files you have, you can then put in. However, this is going to lead into the real issue at the bottom of this. I want to put an attacking defending flag. Because as an attacker, I don't want offensive sounds to annoy me. I want them to be offensive. Because that's all you're throwing at the network all day. If that's annoying you, you're not going to do it. However, if it's pleasant, if it sounds good, if you have static protecting as your thing, then this kind of can create a soundtrack while you're doing your pen testing. It allows you not to have to dig through YouTube or SoundCloud or Bandcamp. You have the music at your disposal. If you want to fire something up a little bit different, use NetDiscover. Fire off an art store. As a defender, you want those annoying things to stand out. You want those suspicious activities. Maybe you don't even want to hear HTTPS because you're not going to be able to do anything about it unless you're doing some of the deep packet inspection with the SSL termination. So the real secret here is that it's kind of a gimmick. Maybe not a very hidden secret, as you'll be able to tell, but this does not scale well. This is never going to have great performance. Because anytime you are using a representation that is 100 to 150 milliseconds long, you have already missed out on hundreds, thousands of packets that are streaming across the wire. Not really a good way to deal with that. That's why I call it real-time in quotes. Because what you're most likely hearing hit the wire a while ago. That being said, if you have other packet traces going on, it may give you an ability to alert on it. Potential solutions to that is indeed the filter, where just don't care about unimportant things, lumping multiple packets of a certain type together into one tune, so that way it represents 10 HTTP packets to have a 100 millisecond long tune. So, just to do a recap, it's not going to do away with Wireshark and tcpdump. It really isn't. They're fantastic tools. They allow for so much more than PcketRquet really does, but I really think it can make a solid companion tool. It can give you that alert. It can give you a way to swivel back in your chair if your eyes are tired, lean back, and just listen to the network instead of having to just keep pouring over your Wireshark output. And it's relatively easy to just turn it on or off. And if you have the ability to split PCAP files, like with Scapy, you could carve out particular chunks and then just listen to those if you don't care about everything else. Most important part, though, is I had a ton of fun with this. It is goofy, it is gimmicky, but good God, is it kind of cool to just spam out what the network's doing. Run random network checks and use tools that you haven't encountered before to see what protocols they're using. See what ports it'll trigger. And I think that's an important thing to introduce back into the security workspace. So, at this point, any questions, comments, or discussion?
So, in my mind, this is kind of like sort of like a spectral analysis. And I'm thinking NASA one day they play back the sound of a quasar, and I think that the way they do it is they translate different energy levels and different frequencies into different frequencies in the sound domain. So I'm curious, and I don't know whether your sound package has this capability, but I'm curious if you've ever thought about, instead of playing discrete sounds, translating it into a frequency, and then that way you could potentially have a constant stream of everything that's playing in together, instead of having
instead of each individual beats have it blend together.
Yeah.
That would require a much better knowledge of programming and sound processing than I currently have. But that is a really, really, really solid point. Because if it is just flowing together, then it may not matter quite as much if they're distinct. So thank you.
It really strikes me that your project is kind of like old school, phone free. Being able to listen to tones over the wire and figure out what's going on with the network. I don't know if you recall seeing hackers where that character, sitting there, listening to various sounds and being able to, process, and see. I know, looking at network traffic logs is not as important as how one can try to do it. This could be a tool to help identify anomalies.
Very solid points. And definitely, I like the analogy with the freaking, mainly because it feels like it adds some slight legitimacy. But the traffic analysis and the log analysis is exactly the sort of thing, because really, as I mentioned, it's the concept. It's introducing the fun and the alternative ways of looking at something. This doesn't have to parse packets. If you could just run grep and pipe that into the basic if-else statement here, so then you would be able to just start listening to pretty much anything you wanted. And really seriously going to be the code review, but also, please be kind, this is really not attractive. As I said, it's just, if it has port, play that file. Destination port, play that file. If you had any source of data that you wanted to listen to, you could use this basic structure, just pass in whatever you need to be parsed as something different, and you'd be able to listen to it. So it's more the introduction of a concept, not trying to be the one and only. Anything else?
Keeping up what you just said, in the olden days, they talk about how the computer operator used to be able to look at when computers had flashing lights on the front. They could look at the flashing lights and tell, wait a second, that's an infinite loop, or wait a second, that's not a normal I/O sequence or whatever. So it is a very similar concept of what does the regular system sound like?
Exactly, just another means of kind of interpreting what the system, what the computer, what the network is telling us, whether it's lights, whether it's sound. I want sound because I try to do some graphical stuff, and let's just say I'm not a designer. It did not look pretty. Anything further? All right. You guys have been a solid crowd. Thanks for listening to me. And